Okay, so I'd like to show you how to set up a codenvy development environment for working through the exercises in Clojure for the Brave and True. The first thing he has us do is to use line new app to set up a project structure, and unfortunately there isn't a great way to do this in the codenvy setup that I've done. There is one way you can do it. You can essentially do everything in a runner. So essentially you're using codenvy as a container runner and you're not using any of the IDE features. And in that case, you can start the container up. You can use lean new. You can do all of your editing in Emacs. As soon as the container shuts down, you in theory would lose everything. So what you can do then is actually make a Git project and check your work in, and then when you come back to the IDE, you spin up the container again, you check out your Git project and keep going. We're going to do it a slightly different way. I just set up an empty Clojure app by running line new app, empty Clojure app, or I think just Clojure app, and I checked it in here, and we're going to then check this out into codenvy, and that'll be a place for us to start where we can edit code and work through the samples. So before we do that, I mentioned in the last video, codenvy gives you 20 gigabyte hours per month for free, and if you give out referrals, they'll give you an extra 20 gigabyte hours per month, and your recipient of your referral. So it's pretty easy to bump this up to a point where you have enough gigabyte hours that you essentially have, at least for, probably not for your job, but for working through the exercises in the book. You could do that for free. So basically I'm going to just click here. I'm going to say I want to make a new project. I'm going to use Git repository. I'm going to do the empty Clojure, GitHub, empty Clojure app, and we'll just say create. So that's created a project in codenvy, and I'm opening it up now, and we'll just say keep blank here, and you'll see I have the project structure with the hello world example that was generated by line new app. So in the book, he basically wants us to change hello world to I'm a little teapot. So let's go ahead and make that change. Okay, I'm a little teapot. And now if we want to run this, we're going to have to set up a runner because we just have the default runners, which aren't really going to do us any good. So we'll create a new runner. We'll leave it with the default 1 gig of RAM, and we'll make it the project default, and we'll save. Actually, let's change the name of the runner to Clojure for the Brave and True, and save again. And then we can kick the runner off. This process can take some time if the Docker layers, file system layers, haven't been cached. There's a bunch of different runners, like instances servers at codenvy, and each one in theory needs to cache all of the layers. Fortunately, it looks like I hit one that was already cached, and this should have come up right away. So if we cd to application and we line run, which is essentially what he's telling us to do in the book here, right? Hey, I'm a little teapot. So that is a pretty quick way to get that done. There's some uberjar stuff here you can do, but then you don't have a good way to get those off the Docker container. As I showed you in the previous video, you can line REPL. Now this will take a little while because I have cached a whole bunch of dependencies, but unfortunately I don't have these dependencies. So the first time in, it takes a little longer to start, but subsequently it'll run more quickly. So that's the sort of basic stuff. We could put some of these examples into the REPL once it starts up. So we can do like plus 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever from the book. First 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. If we quit the REPL and we start it again, hopefully it'll come up much quicker this time because all the dependencies have been downloaded. Of course, it is still slow. Part of that is because the CIDR middleware stuff is in place for when we want to use all of this stuff with Emac. You probably noticed I started the REPL up in the application folder, so we can actually run our code from the REPL directly. We can also make edits to our code and have those reflected in the REPL. So in our code, our namespace is clojure-app.core. We want to reload it. And now if we run main, we should see the change, capital Teapot to lowercase teapot. Right, so we have this workflow where we edit files, we can reload them, and then we can interact with our change code. And it's actually pretty seamless.